Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihiyeh b'dvarei. Okay, good morning to everybody. Thank you for joining. As we jump back into Likutei Moharan, today's shir is sponsored by Eli Walbram of 92ndnach.com. Also sponsored by Zev Klein Lenishmas, his parents, Rivka Bryndel, Simcha and Ya'akov and Yeshעיהו. Also sponsored anonymously b'schus shidduchim for Klal Yisrael singles. Should only hear b'suras tovos and all Klal Yisrael in this list of our learning today. Be'ezras Hashem. Okay, so we continue with Torah Lamed Gimmel be'ezras Hashem, which we got quite a bit into, actually, considering how much text it is. And we're just going to do a very, very quick overview, having done quite a long review yesterday, before we continue today with Eis Dalet, right? So we've been speaking about the concept of finding Shalom. Shalom is unity. Shalom is oneness. Shalom is taking things that are apparently disparate and seeing how really there's an underlying unity that's beyond the surface of these two things that enables them to come together. And the way to be able to access that kind of consciousness is through the tzaddikim and through the Torah. Tzaddikim who are called Shalom, and Torah, which is called Shalom. And the Torah of Shalom, transmitted by the tzaddikim, who are called Shalom, is founded upon the consciousness that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in everything, both in Chesed and in Gevura. Ultimately, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is acting through all different forces in reality, both those forces that seem to be carrying us along very beautifully and wonderfully in the aspect of Hatayv, Hanir, V'Handiklis, revealed good, and also the oppositional forces, difficult moments, challenges that people go through, things that seem to be holding a person back are actually releasing them forward, right? It's just to enable the person to grow, to enable the person to deepen their understanding of life, to become more honest and authentic and vulnerable and real, and more more human and more connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through that process. And when a person is connected to this consciousness, they know that Malach Haaretz Kavodah, they know that everything is filled with Elikus, so then they're able to find the Oisius HaTorah, which is how HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals his undifferentiated Ratzon in literally everything that exists, even in the places that would appear most distant from serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Masu Mata Ba'ako, when a person is surrounded by non-Jewish forces, right? It's things that are completely separate from the realm of Kedusha. Still, a person is able to find meaning there. A person is able to find messages from Hashem that are echoing throughout every encounter that they have, conversation that they have, situation, circumstance that they find themselves in. And ultimately, even a person who would appear so far from Elikus that he is able to ask, where is your God? Because he feels like it's not his God anymore. You answer him, B'krach Gadol Shebaram, which is reference to that very person. You say, Hashem is obviously still within you. There are just layers and layers and layers. And these layers of Gashmias, which are subjective, meaning when we're incapable of actually seeing the truth, which is the Oisius HaTorah that are within that matziv, those cover over the letters of the Torah. And the letters of the Torah that are there, which is letters of Hayra'ah, which is letters of Yimei Tov, Chesed, are shrunken, they're small, they're limited. But when a tzaddik comes along who's able to look at the world through the eyes of the Torah that's called Shalom, which hopefully we'll get to today, the deeper Torah, the Torah that reveals Hashem's presence and Hashem's love, such a tzaddik is able to allow those letters, which he now understands to be powered by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and for the purpose of transmitting Hashem's presence, to expand and expand and expand. And Mamela, brand new energy is able to come down from Shemayim. This is the secret of Baruch Haman, which is the aspect of being able to bring Elikus to the Nitzitz, the Kedusha that's within the Klippa, that by these tzaddikim it's Purim all year round, and they're constantly able to live life with this consciousness, with this perspective, rooted as they are in a desire to grow, and not chas v'shalom in a desire to manipulate this circumstance to say, oh, there's other kus here also, and then to continue on with the darkness, chas v'shalom. But people who genuinely want to grow closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that is going to enable them to do that by recognizing that even where they are, not pshat, they can stay where they are, but there's a foothold to be able to then climb out of it. That's the whole nakuda. That's the point, right? Not to be satisfied with the point of light that a person sees, deep down in a pit because somebody uncovered a little bit of the hole. You're still in a pit. You want to get out, right? So this that somebody uncovered a little bit at the top and opened it up, and you can sort of catch a glimpse of the sky, is for the purpose of now saying, okay, there's a way out of here. I'm not fundamentally stuck, right? That's the idea. That's Baruch Haman, and that is the Inyan of Nasav and Ishma. And that was the Baruch Hashem Malachav, which are these tzaddikim, Giboirei Koach, Oisei Divarai. They build up Divarai, which is a Kadosh Baruch Hu's Davar, and Ilain Inan, the Mizkar B'nai Yisrael, right? Inan Dan Mlachan Mamish, Oisei Divarai, the Avdanahai Davar, Lishmoya B'Kol Divarai. And then they're able to channel down Kol Divarai. We spoke at the end of Shir yesterday. There's a difference between letters and voice. Letters is the Bechina of Malchus. Kol, voice, is the aspect of Kudsha B'Richu. And these tzaddikim are able to bring about a yichud kudsha b'richu shchinte by allowing the differentiation of all of their experiences, which are only externalized manifestations of the Shechina Kedusha, to remember they all come from Elikus, and Mamela they're able to reconnect those letters with their source, bring meaning into everything, which is life, bring life into everything, bring light into everything, and that's the Indian of going back to Torah Aleph, finding the ches of Chachmilah reflected in the nun of Malchus, bringing together, right, the ches and the nun to create chen ha'amiti, where all of a sudden things that happen don't just have an external sheen, right, but are actually eternally significant. And that's the idea that we've been discussing. Just to point out before we continue, is that the Rebbe brought this pasuk Giboirei Koach, right? Baruch Hashem Malachav Giboirei Koach. And the word Koach, especially in the context of this Torah, could be seen as a reference to the Chav Ches Itim, where David HaMelech says there are 14 times of Taiv and 14 times of Ra, right? Eis Limtoya, Eis LaKarnatua, Eis Limolchama, Eis L'Shalom, right? And there are 14 on either side of that little sort of poem, right? And that's Chav Ches, that's 28. So Giboirei Koach means these are Baruch Hashem Alacha, these tzaddikim are Giboirei Koach. They're able to recognize that there is not only isn't there a fundamental distinction between the Eis Milchama, for example, and the Eis Shalom, because of the Kus is within it. It is all transmitting the Koach of a Kadosh Baruch Hu that manifests within both the 14 times L'Taiv and the 14 times L'Ra. That's Baruch Hashem Alachav Giboirei Koach, and therefore Oisei Divarei, they're able to build up a Kadosh Baruch Hu's Dibur, and that's the Inyan of Malchus Peh, and that's the aspect of Ba'Hashem Ahalal Davar, and then Be'elikim Ahalal Davar, in both the Chav Ches Itim, in both the Yud Dalet Itim L'Taiv, Yud Dalim Itim L'Ra. At the end of the day, they're able to find the Kadosh Baruch Hu's Torah, which are the letters of Hashem's will, and to be able to perceive the Hayra'ah that a Kadosh Baruch Hu is transmitting. So with that, we continue with Ois Dalet. And the Tzaddik says like this, V'zeh Yadua, and the following is known. Shahat Torah Hainu HaMidos, the Torah, which are the Midos of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, as we already learned that the Torah is called Midos, remember? Because the Torah is connected to the concept of Midos. Rabbi Nachman had told us in the beginning of his Gimmel, the Torah is full of Ava, Yira, all the other Midos of Hashem. And so it's known that the Torah, which is Midos, Hainu Hayamim, which is the concept of a Midas Yamai Mahi, Shoyer Behem Ahavasi Yisbarach Shemai. Everybody understands that the Torah was given out of love. That the Torah is given in order to grant us the possibility of building a relationship with the Ein Sof. Like we say, Anoichi Ana Nafshi Ksavis Yahavis. I wrote down my soul and I'm giving it to you. Right? Chazal say, B'yayim Chasud Nasai, Zumat Torah. It was a wedding. It was the greatest Ava in the world. It was Anila Daidi V'Daidi Li Panim B'Panim. Now he brings another raya from the Zohar, which tells us Yoimam Yitzaba Hashem Chazdai, which literally means in the daytime HaKadosh Baruch Hu will command His kindness and send it forth. But the Zohar Kadosh learns Yoimam is plural, and Yitzaba Hashem Chazdai is singular, Chesed is singular, and we know that Chesed is one of the 7 lower midos, which all correspond to the 7 days of the week. So Memela, the Zohar learns from here that Yoimam, all of the days of the week, Yitzava Hashem Chazdai. which translates in the Zohar Kadosh to, I'll skip a line in a minute, I'll come back, Hu yoima da azil im kulhu yoimin. Chesed is a day, which means a midah, that's azil im kulhu yoimin. It underlies all of the days. It isn't simply that Chesed is the first day of the week. It means it's the Yesod of the week. It means it's the platform for the Gevura that emerges on Monday, and then Tiferes on Tuesday, Netzach and Hoyd on Wednesday and Thursday, Yesod on Friday, and ultimately Shabbos Malchus is all founded upon the foundation. It is accurate to say that the foundation of a building is present on every level of the building. Because without that foundation, everything would fall over. And Mamela, there's a direct koach of the Yesod on every level of the building because everything is resting on it. And it's the same way with the 7 lower midas. It's the same way with the 6 other days of the week, which is that they all rely upon the ava and the chesed with which HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates all of reality. Olam chesed yibaneh. And chesed, says the Rebbe, is ava. Shah chesed hainu ha'ava. Kamoshe kasav, ahavas olam ahavtich. I have loved you in eternal love. Al kein v'shachtich chesed. Therefore I have drew you along with kindness, with chesed. So that's Yoim Mitzvah Shem Chazdai. Chesed u Yoim da azalim kula Yoimin. It's a day that travels with all of the days. Every one of the days is reflecting HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chesed. That's all of the midas that a person might encounter in life. That's the Yemei Tov and also the Yemei Ra, right? That's Gevura, and then mitigated Gevura, which is Tiferes, and then Netzach, which is chesed within that, and then Hoyd, which is Mamish, the din of all din, and then Yesod v'chulei. It's all chesed. Hainu hamidos. And this is the concept of measurement. In this world of distinction, in this world of gvul, in this world of differentiation. Ki amidas im tzimtzumim le'elikusa, because the midas hakdoshim are tzimtzumim for elikus. The whole purpose of the midas is that they are tzimtzumim, they are various constrictions that are going to enable us to encounter that which is beyond any limit, which is less machshava tvisa beklal, which is really impossible for us to be able to grasp at all. The midas are for the purpose of allowing us to interact with various facets of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu desired, our Ein Sof, to reveal of himself, Ein Sof. That's what the concept of the midas are. This is something Rabbi Nachman had actually told us earlier. I can't remember right now in which Torah, but the Rebbe said at some point that it's a great chesed from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he revealed shemos. Great chesed, because otherwise there's no way to interact with it. It's just a total mystery. There's nothing to hold on to. It's just the Ein Sof. We know nothing about it. Less machshava tvisa beklal. No mind can grasp HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But once Hashem reveals himself in the Shem Kel, which is chesed, and the Shem Elikim, which is gevura, and the Shem Yud Kevavke, which is tiferes, and Svaka is netzach and hoy, and then Shaka is yesod. All of a sudden, you're able. There's a garment, right? There's a garment, a holy garment, through which we're able to interact with this entity. Otherwise, it would be completely impossible. We would just have to nullify ourselves. We couldn't meet him panim bepanim. That's what he said is the distinction between the Eastern religions and the Western, I would say, religion, because it's really just one religion. Everything else is just distorted versions of it. But in the East, God is faceless, nameless, right? At least in Buddhism. It's the only way to connect with it is just total bittul, is totally meditating until you get rid of the self. In the West, the self is important. Hashem gave us a self. He doesn't want us to get rid of it. He wants us to interact with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with himself, panim bepanim. We're created in the likeness of the divine, right? In the West, the divine, in Yiddishkeit, the divine has a form, kiviyachal, right? In other words, the Ein Sof obviously has no form, but Hashem shows up in the tzimtzumim of the midas in order to give us the capacity to actually connect with him in the same way we connect with a human being, kiviyachal, lahavdal, elef avdalis. And so the midas is a great chesed from Hashem. Ki amidas him tzimtzumim le'elikusai. For what purpose? So that we could have any possibility of actually glimpsing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of actually building some kind of kesher with Hashem by way of these midas, of these measurements, which capture that which is beyond measure. As the Zohar tells us elsewhere in Pasach Aliyah, begin the ishtamayid inlay. One of the primary reasons for the creation of the world is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to make himself known to us in some way. Without midas, without tzimtzum, it's beyond. And we're incapable of actually connecting to Hashem and building a real relationship with Him. But because our Kadosh Baruch Hu loved Klal Yisrael so much, and He wanted to build a relationship with Klal Yisrael as a prototype for the rest of all of creation, that they should love Him together with loving themselves, which we're going to see in a couple of minutes, from this physical world, which is a world of tzimtzum, which is a world of gevul. As a result of His chesed, which is oilam chesed, so then yibane hilbish es elikusei b'midas haTorah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was malbish Himself within the measurements of this thing called the Torah Kedosha, both in the form of showing up throughout all of creation, which we've been learning about, and that's the aspect of the various aspects of the diversified and multiple or multiplicity oriented world of fragmentation. That's all the Torah, because it's all a result of strings of code which are created out of the letters of the Aleph Beis, each of which is reflective of another aspect of what of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's or facets of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's undifferentiated will. But also we're going to speak here in a much more literal sense within the Torah Kedosha itself, within the various mitzvos and the various concepts and the various halachas. Those are tzimtzumim to be able to grasp HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the aspect of the Taryag mitzvos. Ki Hashem is barach shi'er b'daitoi, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu shi'er b'daitoi, he perceived in His infinite mind, sha'idei mitzvah hazois nuchal hasegoisai, by way of this thing called the mitzvah of leket, shikha, and peah, by way of this thing, this mitzvah of shiluch hakan, this mitzvah of tefillin, this mitzvah of yibum, by way of all of these very particularized guidelines and commandments and inyanim, through these mitzvahs, each and every one of them provides another doorway into coming to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the reason that there are mitzvahs, is to come to know Hashem. Not simply to do them, right, but to recognize, wow, this is another avenue through which I might walk into Hashem's embrace and to come to gain some glimmer of His godliness by way of this mitzvah, with its inyanim, with the panemius of this mitzvah. That's what Rav Nosson calls halacha. That's what a halacha is. It enables us to walk with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It enables us to dig deeper. And that was Rav Nosson's whole sefer, right? Likutei Halachos is for that purpose, is to help us understand what underlies the mitzvahs, that I don't just do them, but I'm able to use them, right? That they should be transportative. They should move me from point A to point B, instead of just allowing me to remain static within it. That's what halacha is. I'm supposed to lech, I'm supposed to go, I'm supposed to move. I'm supposed to rise as a result of engaging with the midas of Hashem, because each of these midas is another vessel which captures another facet of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ein Sofiyut, with Hashem's infinitude. And therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu channeled and constricted His Elokus, His infinity, Dafka, within these 613 mitzvahs. These mitzvahs are incredibly precise. They're incredibly specific. They're among the most defined things on the planet, likely. I mean, they can't be one iota off. It's not, everybody makes jokes every year about like Hilchos Christmas trees, and like what it would look like. There's no halachas. You can do what you like. What kind, what color, what this. The mitzvahs are mamish miduyak she'en kamayim. L'mashal, for example, shashir b'daita mitzvahs tefillin. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because it emerged from Hashem's mind, right? Shi'er b'daita mitzvahs tefillin. I had this Indian earlier on in the beginning of our marriage. My wife and I were privileged to take a little bit of a honeymoon to Hawaii. The only time that we'd ever get to do that, both from the finance perspective and from the being alone without children perspective. And we went to the island of Maui. And I'll never ever forget it. I mean, it was mamish niflois habayre. Like what exists on this planet. Like we live in London and Hendon. It's hard to remember sometimes that there are like other places in the world that are actually, not to say anything too bad about London, but are really beautiful and not drab and gray, and and they exist right now, and just being able to see the sights and the glory of creation, and sitting there by the beach one day looking out, as there was a sunrise or sunset, and it just occurred to me that the same mind with a capital M that designed this whole experience, the beauty of sunset, is the same mind from which tefillin originated. And it was just this stark, because you don't think very much about tefillin, but like no one designed tefillin. Like it was sheer b'daita. There's the same way nobody designed this thing called sunset, right? With the the rays of the sun cutting through the clouds and everything's pink and the whole sky's lit up and like that shimmering like ray of the sun on the ocean and just nobody designed that. Hashem designed that. The same mind that design, like it's like you see from the same designer, from the same producer, comes a new, like tefillin is from the same designer. It's in that same line. And so mamish, like we don't often think about HaKadosh Baruch Hu before giving the mitzvah of tefillin, planning, so to speak, for this thing called the mitzvah of tefillin that will capture his elokus in a unique way. But says Rabbi Nachman, for example, Sheshi'er b'daita mitzvahs tefillin, when the great designer was designing this new thing called tefillin, Sha'am mitzvah azayis tzarech liyas kach, it was specific. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mind, the infinite mind of the Creator, understood that the mitzvah has to be in the following way. Hainu arba parshias. It has to be 4 parshias. Ve'arba batim, and the tefillin shall rosh with 4 compartments shall ar. It needs to be made out of leather, out of skin of an animal, ksuvim, and they need to be etched in with the shins on one side, shin on the other side. The shin of 3 heads, the shin of 4 heads. Uritzu shall ar. They need to have leather straps. Kikach shir b'daita shall at simtzum hazeh nuchal hasagasela avdai. This is what it arose in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite mind, that through this very precise and specific tzimtzum, called tefillin shel rosh and tefillin shel yad, through this, a person can grasp Hashem in a unique way. In other words, our whole Yiddishkeit would be fundamentally missing if there was no such thing called tefillin. We would be lacking a way of knowing Hashem. Now, if a person can hear that sentence and not understand what I mean, then they need work. They need work. And that's true not just for tefillin, but for all of the mitzvahs. Because that would mean that we're not accessing the soul of the mitzvah. Because, like, what do you mean? It would still be the same Hashem without tefillin. No, it wouldn't be. Because tefillin is not just an act, right? Tefillin is communicative. Tefillin is transportative. There's a new revelation through tefillin of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is to me. And that maybe is every person, kol chad lefum an b'shar believe. It could be that that's true for every person in their own life, that they have the hasag of tefillin, maybe they can't even put it into words. But they know what they'd be missing in terms of their interaction with Hashem through tefillin. Now, tefillin, that's one thing, because tefillin is an obvious one. What about less obvious ones? What would Yiddishkeit be without lighting the menorah and Hanukkah? Maybe that's more obvious, I don't know. What would Yiddishkeit be without tzitzis? Imagine that. If the rest of the tar yab mitzvahs, right? You have the rest of the mitzvahs, 6, 12. You don't have tzitzis. Says Rabbi Nachman, there's something fundamentally lacking in our perception of the unfolding of the divine. Now you imagine a religion without any mitzvahs, forget about it. Just forget about it. And that's, the other religions have no mitzvahs. Now they created traditions that there's not mitzvahs. Like even in Islam, like I said, I think it's true. Most of what they do is just modeled after how they say Muhammad lived. It's not a mitzvah though. It's different. There's a great Jewish theologian who, he co-opted the great I'm forgetting which philosopher it is, but I think therefore Descartes, right? I think therefore I am. Yeah. Yeah, which is very misunderstood unless you read it in the original, actually. It's not what people think it means. You have to look at it over there. It's very deep. But he said, I am commanded, therefore I am. I am commanded. Like, that's my whole life. That's what it is to be mitzuva v'aiseh, right? Meaning, and that's, you could understand now on a much deeper level why it is that the mitzvahs are called mitzvahs, which both mean commandment and also tzavsa. Because it isn't pshat, when I do a mitzvah, I'm connecting to Hashem. That's also nachon. That's also beautiful and true, and already a much higher level than most people are operating at, But this is different. It isn't just the doing of the mitzvah. It's what the mitzvah communicates of godliness. And that's encountering the elokus there. It's almost like HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Halavai oisi azvu v'tayrasi shamara. It's a shocking chazal. It doesn't seem to fit with anything that we're learning. Ki ha'ma'or shaba machzir lemutav. Right? Chazal say, they communicate, Hashem says, if only they would leave me, and they would be Isaac in Torah. Because the light within Torah would be machzir and then lemutav. Now, a misguided perception thinks, what are people busy thinking about Hashem all the time? The Torah, the main thing is just Torah. See, it says in Chazal, Halavai oisi azvu. If they would only leave me with Tarasi shamaru, so the main thing is learning. Forget this spiritual stuff and mystical stuff and relationship stuff with Hashem. Torah, right? Sometimes that's the way that it's used in yeshivas. I heard it myself. As a raya that I should let go of this kind of limud because it's a mefurish Chazal. Halavai oisi azvu. But the Ma'ari Nayim quotes this Maimer Chazal and makes it absolutely clear. No. Ha-ma'ar sheba machzir b'lemutav. What's the ma'ar sheba? The ma'ar sheba is elokus as it shows up in the mitzvos and the midas and the constrictions and the oisias of the Torah. In other words, what Hashem is saying, if you think you're going to try to get close to me without the Torah, i'efshar. At least not in the way that Hashem desires, in a panim bepanim way, in a commanded way, in a mitzvah ba'isa way, in a nasa v'nishma way, of being able to actually interface with this infinite divine. Hashem says, good luck. Because I'm without tzimtzumim. If I'm without tzimtzumim, there's nothing to hold on to. So nobody knows what God is. You walk around saying God your whole life, but there's no capacity to actually understand what it is and how to relate to it. There's no tzimtzumim. So Hashem says, Halavai oisi, meaning pure oisi, azvu. If all the Jews would come back from India, that's what it means. Halavai oisi azvu. After trying to seek me without any gvul, without any tzimtzum, without any kalim, v'tayrasi shamaru. And to connect themselves with the tzimtzumim of the mitzvahs of Torah. You know why? Because hama'ar sheba, which is me, says Hashem, the elokus that I put into the mitzvahs, machzir b'lemutav. That's what's going to bring us into a consciousness of Tov, into a consciousness of Shalom. Daas, to know that maloi chala aretz kavayda les asar panim minei mimala kol alma v'soiviv kol. That's what that means. So the mitzvahs have to be precise. Arba parshias, arba batim shalar ksuvim rutsuah shalar kikach shi'er b'daitoi shalayat simtsum hazeh daika through this very specific simtsum nuchal lahasagoi sai ula avdoi, and it's very precise. V'lachein therefore loitzi v'shia arba batim shal kesef v'zav. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't say you can make tefillin out of silver, you can make tefillin out of gold, have any old kind of tefillin you like, right? It's not a free-for-all. And in the beginning, especially people coming closer to our mitzvahs, it's so intense. Why does it have to be dafka like this? Oh, I can't, individualize a little bit and polka dotted, tefillin things. Tefillin straps happens to be that al pi halacha. You could have different colors. Well, why can't a person do different things? And the answer is because every single facet of the mitzvahs is supposed to be communicating something. If it didn't have a message behind it, you'd be right. Then it would be arbitrary. And then you'd just be doing these ritualistic actions. Because on the level of action, mali hacha mali hasam, what does it actually matter if I wear polka dotted tefillin or black tefillin? On the level of maisa, siti masha tzarich. But on the level of the mitzvos that are attempted to communicate something, what do you mean? Part of the lesson would be missing if it was polka dotted. Might have a different lesson, but that's not what God intended. It's got to be black. Why, for example? Because tefillin shel reish, we already said, is the Kesser. And if you think it's random that now we're learning about tefillin, it's not random, because toita fais, nothing's random here. Toita fais was tatfas, right? Was the two, was the doubled over duality, right? Was the chayshach hakaful umechupal of this worldliness, where a person said, where we said you can find a lakus in there, and that becomes tefillin shel reish. Tefillin shel reish is the inyan of the Kesser. Kesser is the inyan of that realm from which all duality emerges. It's the place of ultimate unity. It's the place where Chachma and Bina, which is the earliest aspect of Chassadim and Gevuros, begin to splinter off from this aspect of Kesser. Shai and Yesh, right? Or Yesh and Shai. Yesh in Chachma, Shai in Bina together are 620 Kesser, which is the Taryag mitzvos and the Sheva mitzvos d'Rabbanan. What's Kesef and Zav? Kesef and Zav is unmitigated chesed, unmitigated gevura. What's Kesser Elyon? Kesser Elyon is l'cha'ira, blinding whiteness. Blinding white. Relatively speaking, to the other spheres below, Kesser is blinding white. It doesn't have a color. I'm just giving it's a mushal. Right, that's why there are colors, because, right, the color white, it emerges from that concept of Kesser. Which sphera is black? Shchaira. Ani. What's Ani? It's Malchus. Shchaira Ani. Black is Malchus. Malchus is a receptacle for all of the midos. Chesed and Gevura. Channel down to Tiferes, further taken apart and refined. Netzachayit, put back into your sight. Channel down through Shakai into the Spechina of Malchus. Black is Malchus. Malchus is Ani. That's the realm of manifestation, actualization. I, a bechina of yesh. Ani is only a reflection of the word ayin. Because v'yitnu lecha Kesser-Malchus. Kesser and Malchus are bound up. Kesser is ayin, Malchus is ani, and ultimately, in the deepest depth, Soif Maseh of Malchus is b'machshava tchila, is reflecting Kesser Elyon. But the deepest depth is to know that not only Malchus is choshech, Kesser is also choshech. That's why I told you it's going to be difficult in the book, because each one, there are different aspects of each. You basically end up with lots of different colors for each sphere. It's difficult to align it. Kesser is also choshech. How could Kesser be choshech? In two ways. First of all, Kesser is ukma hi legabe de ein sof, relative to that which is beyond it. Kesser Elyon is the greatest system in the world, relative to eternality, to infinity. Even though Kesser is going to be further differentiated, but as a first step, Kesser is Malchus de ein sof, and we're going to learn that a little bit later in the Torah. Every aspect that's lower is klape, the lower realm, the lowest. Right? That's how, right? It's the highest of the lower realm. It is the lowest of the higher realm. And also because of the impossibility of grasping it. That's also why it's called choshech. It's impenetrable. So listen to this. This is why Likutei Moharan is so deep. You're blinking, you miss this whole thing, because you could just read it as an example. Okay, and I get it, on an example, Kesef, Zav, okay, silver, gold, Hashem had very specific to Tzumim, and that's the mitzvahs. It's so precise. It is so precise. In order to reveal Kesser Elyon, which is the Atara, Oita Yisrael B'Sefara, of the Tefillin Shabaraish, Pe'eri Allah, Pe'eri Alav, tefillin of silver, which is the whole tzad yamin alone, or tefillin of gold, which is the whole tzad small alone, which is in the context of a Torah that's speaking about Yemei Tov, Yemei Ra, about Me'oroisav, about a person making judgments between one kind of circumstance and another kind of circumstance and thinking, oh, here I can get close to Hashem, and here I cannot get close to Hashem, would not communicate the totality of the Ein Sof. Because that would mean that there's only one lane of experience where a person can find the godliness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu reflected. But there's a whole other aspect of reality, even if only theoretical, where I don't know that godliness can be found there too. And of course, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is one, which means he's the Kol Yachal, like we say in Yom Kippur, V'Koil Olam Yachad. And in his oneness, he unites all of the different aspects of reality. Tefillin Shal Rosh, which is the revelation of Kesser Elyon, needs to be black, because Kesser Elyon, which is Ayin, is going to daika be reflected where? In Malchus. Ayin is communicated through Ani. Ani, Malchus, is the saturation of all of the different midas. Not Chesed alone silver, not Gevura alone gold. All of it. That's tzad yamin and that's not small. That's tzad Chesed and that's tzad Gevura. Daika here in the darkness, we're able to go ahead and experience the Ani aspect of every particularized facet of reality showing up as a defined entity, which has its own facets and boundaries which enable us to differentiate it from between one thing and another. And that's more than just the Ani of a person saying, here I am, but everything has an Ani. Every single aspect of reality in Malchus has an Ani. That's why Malchus is Ani. Memela, it is specifically there that a person can glimpse Kesser Elyon, and the blackness of Kesser that's Ukma L'Gabi de Ein Sof is communicated in the blackness of Malchus, which is the totalized saturation of all possible manifestations of the infinite as it reveals itself within a realm of finitude and limit. And that's why it's precise. Hashem didn't command that the tefillin be made out of silver or gold, which is chesed and gevura. Umadad al yedei ahavasai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu unfolded the whole spectrum of limitation vessels so that we could encounter Hashem not only in the good moments, but also in the challenging moments. Not only in the moments of chesed, but also in the moments of zav, which together is black, is malchus, that contains everything. Nimsa, it emerges it is daika because of the infinite love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loved Am Yisrael. Hilbish as atzvei v'midas haTorah. It is specifically through the midas of the Torah. It is specifically through all of the particularized details of all of the various mitzvos and their parameters, which is called the system of halacha. It is daika there. Daika that Hashem was malbish itself in the midas of the Torah, that emerged from his mind, which emerged from his will, which is Kesser Elyon, which contained the full expression of the Ein Sof, at least as much as we can perceive it within our human experience, where therefore there is nothing that exists. There is nothing that exists. It's not doing an hour. Don't know why. There is nothing that exists that doesn't contain HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence. Nimtza, it emerges, Shebechol Nida Unida, that in every single constriction, in every single measurement, Yesham Ahava, there exists there infinite expansivity, because that's what Ava is. Ava is Chesed. Ava is Gematria Echad. It's the totality of the infinite one, and it's a Pele. What do you mean? You mean in this Diktuk Halacha of Hilchas Basar B'Chalav, I'm going to encounter the infinite creator? And you say not just yes, but specifically yes. Only there. Because that is not just a particular detail of our religion. Like, leave me alone. He said this came from the divine. This came from the infinite mind. It is precise. And guess what? This impulse, motivation to limit comes specifically from the point of limitlessness, of ahava, of chesed, which is yoima da azel in kula yoimin. That's why there are other days of the week, because they are all saturated with the level and the aspect of Hashem's ahava, which is olam chesed yibana, which is the aspect of yoimam yitzah Hashem chazdai. All the days are powered by HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chesed. What are the days? Midas, midas yamai. And that means, just to bring it back closer to home, all of our constrictions, limitations, those frustrating aspects that make us us, and that sometimes we wish weren't there, and that sometimes we imagine that if I didn't have that, I would be able to connect to Hashem on a deeper level. Maybe in the way that someone else can connect to Hashem, and not in the way that we're supposed to connect to Hashem, because otherwise we wouldn't have that tzimtzum. Because the tzimtzum comes from Ava. And it's precisely tailor-made for each and every one of us in our own lives. It's daika through that tzimtzum, through that gevura. Ki gavar aleinu chazdai, is to find the Kodesh Baruch Hu's chesed in it. The gevuros yesha yeminai. It is through gevuros that the right hand kivyachol of a Kodesh Baruch Hu acts, and that ultimately is Kesser Elyon. That's Kesser Elyon. Kesser is what unifies Chachma and Bina. It contains both. It's this completely paradoxical dance between Chassadim and Gevuros, where both Chesed and Gevura interact in order to reveal the totality of the Infinite One, through both mitzvos aseh and mitzvos lo aseh, that together become 620, like I mentioned, which is the Taryag mitzvos and the 7 mitzvos d'Rabbanan, or the 7 mitzvos b'nei Nach, right? Which really are the fullest expression of what the Ein Sof desired to reveal to us, which is the totality of Himself. Through our asek with the Torah that's made out of different midas, which is anoichi and lo yeh, which sit at the core of all the mitzvos haseh and the mitzvos lo haseh respectively, in order to train us to engage in a world of chesed and gevura, a world of good news and bad news, a world of good days and bad days, a world of positive elements in our lives and negative circumstances, with the unified consciousness of being able to find the Kodesh Baruch Hu in everything. That's called a Torah of Shalom, communicated by tzaddikim who are shalom, who are able to transmit the Yaakov Avinu consciousness in a way that enables all of us to live lives of oneness and of homogeneity and of equanimity. Nimtzad emerges that that a person who goes ahead and is finding the Torah in everything on account of engaging with the mitzvos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which help to enable that person to find the Elokus within all of the letters, Azahu Mekarev El HaShalom, he becomes closer to the Shalom, he becomes closer to Shleimus. Shalom, like it says, all of the Torah's paths are Shalom. And that's very specific. It could have told us that the Torah communicates an energy of Shalom in any one of a million ways, but it uses very specific terminology. All of the paths, all of the various paths, which is the aspect of the oilam, the he'elem, the hiddenness, the tzimtzumim, the specificity, the ani, it's all Shalom. Okay, so now we have to know what kind of Torah are we talking about and what kind of tzaddikim are we talking about. It says the Torah has 2 layers, 2 aspects, bechinas niglu, bechinas nister. There's the nigla of Torah, the revealed aspect of Torah, which is the tzimtzumim as they appear devoid of any deeper communication. It's just what it is on the surface, the what to do, the where to do, when to do, how to do the mitzvah. And the nister is called the Iraisa da Atika Stima. It is called the hidden, concealed, ancient Torah. Da Asidala is Galia la'asid lavai, which is going to be revealed in its shleimas la'asid lavai, which Rav Nosson deeply believed Likutei Moharan is already a communication of that Torah. And that's why Rabbi Nachman said that Likutei Moharan is aschalta de Geulah. It's the beginning of the Geulah process, is having teachings like this revealed in the world. Rav Nosson says that explicitly, that Likutei Moharan is teachings from Atika Stima. It's Mashiach Torah. What's Atika Stima? What is Atik Yomin in the Partsufim? What does that correspond to? It corresponds to Kesser-Malchus. Kesser, in its Partsuf form, is called Atik Yomin. It's the Ancient of Days. Why do we think Kesser is Ancient of Days? Because in relation to everything that unfolds from Kesser, Kesser is the earliest, it's the most ancient, it's the great-great-grandfather, so to speak, of all of the different triads, of all the different spheres of Tiferes and Yesod and Malchus, of all those central nodes which are channeling down the breakdown into the various sides, or the development through the various sides. So Kesser is called Atik. This is a Torah of Kesser. This is a Torah of the Ratzon HaElyon, which is communicative of the totality of the Ein Sof, which reflects itself in the differentiation between the different letters of the Aleph Beis. We spoke about that yesterday from Torah Dalit. Now we're speaking about it in terms of the Taryag mitzvos, right? In addition to the 7 mitzvos, which are together equal 620, which is Gematria Kesser, that's split into Chachma and Bina, which becomes Yesh, 310, and Shai, which is also 310. That then, throughout the entirety of the system of Chassadim and Gevuros and all the different various manifestations of the spheres that are reflected throughout the different shemas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as they reveal themselves through the different mitzvos of the Torah, ultimately comes down into Malchus, and we're able to grasp what that Kesser is. That Kesser is Atik Yomin. And there's a Torah da Atika Stima. There's a Torah that is a Torah of Kesser. It's a Torah of Atzilus. It's a Torah of the word da. Remember, Rabbi Nachman starts his Torahs with the word da. The word da is Daas. Daas is the externalization of Kesser that shows how Kesser is unifying Chachma and Bina. Right? That's what Daas is. Daas sits in the middle. It's the corpus callosum that sits in the brain between the two hemispheres of the brain, that therefore has a tzad of this unified thing called Daas. It's on the tzad Yamin. It has a pun. It has a facet that's related to the right, and it has a facet that's related to the left, whereas Chachma and Bina are separate one from the other, at least on the surface, where you can differentiate very specifically between the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain, this being on the right and this being on the left. That Nakuda that sits in the middle is both. It's double-faceted. It has a tzad yamin and a tzad small. That's called Daas. Rabbi Nachman says every Torah that he begins with the word Daas, he's drawing it down from Atzilus. Atzilus is Atik Yomin. Atik Yomin is Kesser. Kesser is the Ratzon. Ratzon Taryag mitzvos. Mitzvos haseh, mitzvos loisaseh. Tzimtzumim ad kedei, details, shebedetails. Mamish, like the most specific system of behavior and action through which we're able to grasp the totality of the expansion of the Ein Sof, which is Ava and Chesed, and that's Yoima Mitzava Hashem Chazdai. That's the Chesed, that's a Yoima, the Azel in Kula Yoimin, that powers all of it. So Ba'az, when the Asad Lavai, all of Klai Yisrael wake up, and all of Klai Yisrael start to mamish smell the coffee of this Likutei Moharan chabura early in the morning, which is always full of the scent of coffee. It's a sentence, it's a saying, right? If they wake up and smell the coffee, and they can chap what there is in the world. It says Da Likutei Moharan. This is Da Rabbi Nachman. We have a Torah Atika Stima. We have a new layer of the Torah has been revealed, And when everybody can begin to engage with the Torah and mitzvahs with these hasagas, which are hasagas of la'as and lavo, they're hasagas that answer all the questions. They're hasagas that it pulls back all the veils. You live in a world of mamish, of elikus. Live in a world of ein oid malvadai, the good, the bad, the ups, the downs, the hispodados, the ability to go out to the Hidden Park, which is what we have around here. My shoes are very muddy from Hidden Park yesterday. You go out over there and you walk and you talk to Hashem. That's it, Chaver. That's Geulah. That's Geulah. That is Geulah. So when all of Klal Yisrael does this, and he uses that word precisely, HaTorah Hazois, when this Torah Lamed Gimmel, which is Torah Da'atika Stima, is revealed throughout the whole world, you know what will happen? There will be an awesome shalom in the world. Right, that the goat will dwell with the wolf and the sheep, right? Or the wolf will dwell with the lamb, and the leopard with the goat. Because the pasuk continues, there will no longer be fighting and devastation on my holy mountain. Ki mala haaretz dea es Hashem. The whole world will be saturated with dea es Hashem. Daas. Daas is Chassadim and Gevuros. Daas is Chachma and Bina. Daas is Kesser-Malchus. Ki hazai yizgale ha'ahava shebedaitoi. Then everybody will bask in the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ava, that all opposition and that all oppositional forces and that all chabura that we go through is all Chazdai HaGadol, is Olam, all the Helem Chesed Yibane, was created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Ava, out of the desire to reveal Himself to us in this incredibly nifla way, Ki niflas beinenu, in this pele of the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu devised the system of the Torah and Klal Yisrael. We're supposed to channel that energy and then to bring it to the world. It's a davar nifla ad lema'od. The theology is so deep. It's so deep. It's not to be believed. When a person studies a little bit the other religions and you hold that theological structure, klapi, what we have, it's a monkey. It's a what's the word? It's just an imitation. Amish an imitation. In terms of theological depth, I mean, it's not even close. A system of Taryag mitzvahs, where each one of the mitzvahs is communicating some other aspect of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence. Not just generally, but in the pratim, in the pratim. There's a nister, there's side in every detail, and there's one to learn. We can learn the side, and therefore when we learn the side, we're aware of the side. When we engage with the mitzvah, we can engage with the meaning. Gewalt. What a privilege. And this is Ava. Hashem really loves us. Hashem really loves Klal Yisrael. What a privilege to have been born into this people. What a privilege to have a Torah like this. What a privilege to be connected to a tzaddik who's called Shalom. Right? This tzaddik, Rabbi Nachman, who's teaching a Torah of unity, revealing to us the Torah Da'atika Stima, already giving us a taste of Geulah Pratis long before the rest of Klal Yisrael is zeicha to taste it. And to be able to live with this awareness and this level of clarity. I believe that, Rabbi Nachman only came to the world to teach Torah Lamed Gimmel, already Dayenu. Right? I mean, this Torah it's everything. Mamish everything. We should be zeicha to live with Daas. We should be zeicha to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ratzon reflected in everything, and to be able to live a life of Kol Mada Avid Rachmana, everything. Yayim da Azal Kuli Yayim, it's all l'tava Avid. Be'ezras Hashem ki gavar
ואתה האב שלי שכל כך אוהב אותי האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה שעלי